Among the many genres and subgenres of horror, possibly the hardest to execute is cosmic. Many different media have tried to execute a well-done cosmic horror. However, I don't think many have come close to quite what Bloodborne has pulled off. Bloodborne does something very special, not relying on the traditional elements of horror genres, such as jump scares and graphic images, though it does utilize those occasionally. Bloodborne's main element of terror lies in its Lovecraftian influence, so today we'll be breaking down the three major elements of cosmic horror, and how Bloodborne utilizes them perfectly.
Curse their fiends, their children too. And their children forever true.
There are three major elements that define the cosmic horror subgenre. Those elements are human indifference, alienation, and sanity, all three of which Bloodborne executes masterfully. And so we'll go through each point and describe exactly what examples Bloodborne uses to achieve fear and scares without the use of traditional horror methods. So let's begin with Bloodborne's use of human indifference. Human indifference, or otherwise known as cosmic indifference, is typically the number one element of a cosmic horror story. It entails the inability of humans to change the ever-churning cosmos' intentions. Or in other words, no matter what the humans do in the story, there is nothing they can do to stop the cosmos, or the terrible fate that awaits them. Bloodborne utilizes this element heavily. The most obvious example would be the spread of the beastly plague. We can see constantly throughout Bloodborne's story that no matter what the humans or the hunters do, there is nothing that can stop the spread. Everyone is turned into beasts throughout Yharnam, and the only way they see possible is to kill every one of them, and kill those who may even potentially have beasthood. The indifference lies in the irony that even though the hunters hunt the beast, they are in turn creating the beasthood within themselves by becoming drunk on their bloodlust. And so absolutely nothing can stop the will of the cosmos in Yharnam. A common reaction to this indifference is pessimism spread throughout the people, and we constantly see this in the civilians of Yharnam. Every time we go up to a door, we're met with a snarky remark telling us to turn away, hunters are not wanted. And this feeling is very understandable. And that understanding is what makes it fearful, because this would be our reaction as well. A further irony and indifference can be found in the leaders of the Healing Church. Lawrence, Amelia, and Ludwig, all holy members of the Healing Church, became the most frightful of beasts. Those who knew the innermost secrets of the Scourge of Beasts fell victim to it all the same. The use of cosmic indifference throughout Bloodborne is plain to see, and it does a great job of driving home that nihilistic feeling that is constantly plaguing us as we journey through Yharnam, that our efforts are meaningless. And it's that feeling that makes the other elements of cosmic horror that much more powerful throughout the game. The second element of cosmic horror that I think Bloodborne does the best is alienation, creating a sense of things that should not be. Yharnam is filled with incomprehensible monsters and horrific beasts, and on their own, they're not necessarily elements of cosmic horror. They're things that can be seen across all horror media, but it's the strange situations that we find them in that make them unique. And there's one phenomenal use of this that I want to highlight, and that is the Amygdalas. On its own, Amygdala is terrifying enough. It's a horrendous beast with 10 arms and numerous eyes, and we get our first glimpse of it on our way to the Grand Cathedral. As we ascend the stairs on our way to fight Vicar Amelia, we see these statues lining the walls that look very eerie. We might have caught a glimpse of it if we got grabbed out in the courtyard, but chances are you didn't. And so looking upon these statues, it's almost impossible to make out what it is if you don't already know. It's clearly not human, and it's not a beast. It's almost alien. A stark contrast to everything we've seen so far. And it is a statue, so that means something is worshipping it or holds it in high regard. But then we fight a boss, so chances are you forget about it. It isn't until we step lightly round to the right of the Grand Cathedral into a shrouded church where we finally get our first glimpse of the Amygdala.
Oh, Amygdala. Oh, Amygdala. Have mercy on the poor bastard.
What makes this encounter so creepy isn't necessarily the form of the Amygdala, even though it is terrifying to look at. It's the fact that this entire time we've been exploring throughout the game, it's been sitting there, watching and lurking, waiting for the moment to grab us and transport us off to another nightmare. It's the fact that we're exploring a church, a place of worship and holiness, that we encounter the most frightful of demons. It's a thing that should not be, in a place it should not be. And even though we can fight the Amygdala that we found, we come back to find out that there are many, many more, all sitting and waiting and watching. And this is only one example of how Bloodborne masterfully uses alienation to enhance its cosmic horror. In fact, all of the great ones enhance this. They create this incomprehensible feeling of things that should not be, a feeling of terror. The third element of cosmic horror is sanity, skirting the line of rationality and insanity. Perhaps the greatest example of insanity in Bloodborne are the hunters that get turned into beasts. The example I like the best is Ludwig. Ludwig, probably the most prominent hunter in Yharnam, is turned into the most savage of beasts. And during the fight he does something very interesting. The holy moonlight blade that he held onto so tightly spoke to him, and he refers to it as his mentor, his guiding moonlight. But it's this action that brings about a semblance of sanity within him, an action that we the player deem as insane, because no one with rationality would be talking to a sword. And here we can see where the line is being trod upon. The boundary between rationality and insanity is touched but not broken. And it's that teetering between rationality and insanity that brings about the cognitive dissonance within the player, and brings about the fear. It's never quite revealed if Ludwig is insane in our fight or if he's really aware of what he's doing. And that's an aspect that makes it so compelling. And this element of sanity is all throughout Bloodborne. Ludwig is not the only example. However, I think it's used best in his fight. And those are the three major elements of cosmic horror that Bloodborne absolutely nails. There are also some commonly used tropes within the cosmic horror subgenre that Bloodborne also utilizes. The first one is cults, and we can clearly see this with the Healing Church and the Bergenworth Scholars. And the usual goal of the cultist is to enact the will of the cosmos, or in this case, the will of the Great Ones. The next trope is an Eldritch Abomination, and this is all throughout Bloodborne and the other Dark Souls games. Pretty much every boss is an Eldritch Abomination of its own. Bloodborne, however, I think does the best job at delivering these creepy designs that really shock the player. Ludwig, the Moon Presence, Abritus, and the Orphan of Kaz are all excellent designs for this. And then the final common trope is a secret knowledge, and with Bloodborne we can see this in the Old Blood and the knowledge of the Great Ones. It's a knowledge that only a very select few know about, perhaps the cultists, but that can influence the world in such a grand scale, and this is perfectly communicated in Bloodborne. But through all of this we can clearly see that Bloodborne is a masterclass on cosmic horror, and perhaps the best example of it I've ever seen. But guys, if you enjoyed this video, please leave a like on it and share it if you don't mind to. Let's try to grow the channel even more. You guys have been absolutely awesome with the interactivity lately, and that really means a lot. But anyways guys, I'll catch you in the next one.